Hi everyone, welcome back to Church of Aliens podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Had a good week. So let me get into it. I wanted to talk about the Chris Bledsoe story. I just finished listening to the Bledsoe Said So podcast with his son Ryan and his co-host Nick, and it was awesome. It was really a really good listen, and I think it was the second part. So they finished the regression therapy, and thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought they did a great job going through all the different parts of the story and what he recollects, and I want to get into it a little bit. I'm sure most of you know about Chris Bledsoe Sr. He's been part of the UFO community and lore for a pretty long time. I think since 2011 or 12. I think that's when he had his encounter with the lady, as he calls it. And he had the MUFON documentary, which I've seen as well. And that wasn't that good, to be honest, but I have seen the documentary, and he's been studied and investigated by basically everybody who's somebody in this area. He's a legit experiencer and witness of the paranormal. The list is endless of people who have been in contact with him, from John B. Alexander, Tim Taylor, aka Tyler D. from American Cosmic, Diana Walsh Pasulka, Jack Valet, Tom DeLong, Lou Elizondo. Just keeps going on and on. The amount of people that have been to that property and that house and with that family, and from what I've heard, most of them have seen and experienced either orbs of light or paranormal activity once they stay with Chris and engage with him. So he's a legit experiencer. So so in this episode, it was the second part, and they were just going through the last part where Barbara Lamb, the hypnotherapist, was in a sense just asking more questions about and sort of trying to take out more of the story about the lady and the encounter, which wasn't really explained in too much depth in the documentary that they did about him. So it was really interesting to hear a lot more what Chris Bledsoe really experienced and what he saw and how he worded everything. I mean, one of the things that really stuck out to me was how he referenced the lady as the Holy Spirit, which is really interesting. And I mean, myself coming from a Christian background, I have heard where there's certain interpretations where the Holy Spirit is the feminine aspect of the Trinity. So you have the Father, the Son, and then the Holy Spirit, the Comforter, which can be interpreted as the motherly, comforting aspect of God that is here on earth and lives inside us all. So it's really interesting to hear how he describes that as the lady, as the Holy Spirit, as the Comforter. But also, I mean, he went into a bit into Egyptian gods as well. He called her Hathor, and he went a little bit into that. It wasn't really explained too in depth about the Egyptian mythology and how it's related to the lady, but apparently she's just this archetype that is coming in different times, visiting people. And according to Dinah Walsh Pasulka, Ryan said that the last time she had someone had a visitation as powerful like that was with Fatima in Mexico. So that was pretty wild. If that's the same lady, the same being, yeah, just talking to people and changing their lives, giving them messages and visions. Yeah, but the episode was pretty wild. I mean, even it was interesting to hear how Ryan said that even some of the CIA guys would joke around and mention how Chris Bledsoe, the experience was so strong and so emotional for him that every time someone would mention it, he would start crying and have a really emotional response to this experience from years ago. Even years later, he would still have that same emotional. And Ryan sort of mentioned that it was a little bit of trauma, but also in a sense that it's not completely negative trauma, but it's such an impactful event in his life that he just remembers it still vividly, so strong in his emotions. And he was joking around how even the CIA guys would sort of say, "Oh, be careful not to make him cry again when you mention this story." So yeah, even like people in the CIA and these agencies and would study this man and what he experienced, which is pretty amazing. I mean, I doubt people from the CIA really study people who have had nonsense experiences or fake encounters with the paranormal. So it really shows how real it is, especially for that family. Because I know even I follow Chris Bledsoe on Instagram, and it's literally like almost every day he records something on his phone or his camera where it's an orb. I think the other day I saw one where it was like a purple orb flying around. It was from quite far away, but even so, the consistency is quite scary. I mean, usually you see something like that on Twitter or Instagram every couple of weeks, but this is like a daily thing with Chris Bledsoe. And even I also follow them on Instagram, and Ryan, on his wedding day, an orb appeared and they were filming it. That was nuts. And he was going into a little bit of, which is quite interesting, why, like, have they been chosen, or is it the property? Ryan seems to think that it's in the genetics of what they've been told as well from Jim Semivan, that it's in their genetics, because they were trying to figure out why is Chris having not such consistent experiences and such powerful ones. And I think he was mentioning that his family may have come from a long line reaching to King Arthur, which is wild. But yeah, so basically they believe that it's a genetic component to why they're having so many experiences, which is kind of different. I've always had an idea that it's possibly because of the land, that something happened on the land, whether the land was cursed or blessed, or certain people were buried on the land. That's why there can be a lot more paranormal activity in that area. But they seem to think it's more of a genetic component, which is really interesting as well. Even in Diana Walsh's book, Cosmic American, the character there, Tyler D, which is really Tim Taylor, really goes. He has some, ideas about how important genetics are, and how they're like receivers to a radio. They need to be tuned to the right frequency to experience and to receive messages. So that gives credence to that idea. But yeah, and I've also been listening to some interviews with Diana Walsh, Pasulka, and there was one where she did mention she knows them quite well. I mean, she said that her kids went up there to the house, they had dinner together as a family. I mean, she says that they're the nicest family, and one of their sons actually studied at her university. I think she teaches at North Carolina, one of the universities there. And yeah, so it was interesting to hear, because apparently she's going to be releasing a book, hopefully soon, about psi research, and in terms, I think, how people have been using psi as a weapon, but also to do good. And I think there'll be some interesting information regarding Chris Bledsoe and how, in a sense, he's using it for good instead of weaponizing it, like a lot of the governments have in the US and Russia. And it's quite interesting, because the message from the lady to Chris Bledsoe was also a warning that he has to spread his message of light and positivity and love to the world, because there are certain people, and even the lady said that there were certain beings that wanted darkness and fear, and that is the coming doom of humanity, where we feel separate and do things out of hatred, and these negative entities latch on to people who are on this frequency. So I think even Ryan, he was mentioning how he'd want to, like, the purpose of the podcast is really to destroy these lies of these evil aliens, and the story of how this other world can be like a scary, and it's negative, and I think it comes a lot from TTSA, but he wants to bring a lot more positivity and release a lot more positive energy and frequency with his podcast, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, I laugh a lot when I listen to this podcast, and usually most UFO podcasts are so serious, and it's usually from people who have never actually experienced anything. These guys have experience, and they laugh a lot and joke around, and I think that's really positive, especially right now when anything you hear about UFOs it's all just military and government, and it's so serious and tightened up. So yeah, it was cool to hear their perspective on this. I think they mentioned that hopefully he will come on the show and be interviewed, which that would be awesome. To hear his own story. I don't know if he'll tell the whole story again, but I mean, to hear him talk about the lady would be amazing. I mean, I've heard some other interviews before, but I like to hear like a modern version for 2021 or 2022. So yeah, I think in conclusion, man, I recommend everybody to go listen to this podcast from the Bledsoe Said So, and yeah, this story is really unique and really legit. Like, you can't deny this guy, Chris Bledsoe, and their family. So I recommend everyone to listen to it and tune into the positive frequencies. All right, I'll check you guys later.